I'm Matthew Maloney, and I'm here with Anthony Heffernan, the Director of the External Reporting Board. It was very nice to meet you.
Morning, Matthew.
Can you give us a quick intro into your role at the External Reporting Board?
So the XRB is a Crown entity, an independent Crown entity, so we operate independently of the government, and we're responsible for setting accounting standards, developing and setting accounting standards. And I think where it becomes more challenging is we're setting accounting standards across multiple sectors. So we're dealing with the for-profits, the companies, think of large listed companies across New Zealand on the New Zealand Stock Exchange. We're setting accounting standards for them. We're setting accounting standards for the public sector, which goes all the way from the New Zealand government, the government accounts, down to government departments, down to local councils, down to very small public sector entities. So that's two groups, and then the third sector is not-for-profits. And each group is very different and got different needs. So our focus is developing accounting standards for those different sectors. So I look after the team that's busy writing those accounting standards.
Brilliant. So what did you study at Victoria and how did you kickstart your career?
Yeah, so I quite often think about that. How did this all happen? So I started at Victoria University, a Bachelor of Commerce and Commercial Law, majoring in accountancy, plus a diploma in professional accountancy. I think things have changed now. Back in those days, you had to do 4 years to become a chartered accountant. So I worked through the 4-year program. And for me, there wasn't too much thought process to it. I did accountancy at school, quite enjoyed it, and then it was really the set program. There was a set program that you did your 4 years at university, then did your 3 years in an accounting firm, became a chartered accountant, and the chartered accountant, once you got that CA designation, you could go anywhere in the world, you could do anything. That was your launching pad. So that was really the motivation.
What motivated you to direct your career to become an accounting standards regulator?
So what's really kept me in accounting for this long is different challenges. And so I went into internal audit, and back then it was Sarbanes-Oxley, if anyone still hears about that. And that was new and a big new thing. So I did that for a year in the UK. My wife got pregnant. I said, take me home. I said, no, the All Blacks are playing in Millennium Stadium in a couple of months. And she said, take me home. So we did our year and I went home. I wasn't too unhappy. I was pretty excited about having a child. So got back home, still said, I'm never doing auditing again. Partner that I used to work with found out I was back in New Zealand, went for coffee. 10 years later I was back, I was doing auditing again. So did my 4 years and back in auditing for another 10 years. And really that was because he came across and said, we'd like you to come across, Anthony, and lead our internal audit department. Okay, did that, developed a new practice in internal audit. And then IFRS came along in New Zealand for the first time, International Financial Reporting Standards. And no one knew anything about that. So I put my hand up and did all that and led that practice. Got that under control and everyone got their heads around that. And then IPSAS came in for the public sector and not-for-profits, International Public Sector Accounting Standards. So what's happened through my career is keeps changing and new things keep happening. And I get excited about the new things and I get excited about putting my hand up and saying, yep, I can do that. No one else is really interested. They want to wait for someone else to do it. So I'm the guy that ends up doing it. Everyone ends up coming to me to look after that.
You've touched on a few of them, but are there any other key enjoyable aspects of your job?
I think in my new role, so I never got to how I got into standard setting, but I got into standard setting because my role through audit was always pushing towards technical, being the expert in the IFRS, being the expert in IPSAS, being the expert in the accounting standards. So at some point I really had to decide, was I going to be an audit partner and deal with clients, or was I going to be an expert and be in the technical aspect? For a long time I liked both because I like working with clients, I like working with people. But the opportunity came to work with the XRB and get into purely standard setting, which is purely technical, but in the technical role. So in the technical role I'm working with different people, working with constituents, and working with users all the time.
Excuse the pun, but how do you assess the success of accounting standards issued by the XRB?
Yes, we're doing that from a number of angles, and the main one is really me getting out and talking to people and talking to different groups. And that's talking to the not-for-profit groups and meeting up with people from Treasury so I can understand what's happening in the public sector, meeting with Audit New Zealand and the Officer of the Auditor General, so I know again what's happening in the public sector, and meeting our directors of our companies. So when our directors are looking at their financial statements, they get prepared and they're nice and glossy and they get submitted at the AGM. Do they make any sense? Are there any use? Or are they just getting prepared and then put into a drawer? So we're having those kind of discussions all the time.
Obviously you've been in the accounting industry for a while. How do you see it changing and what does this mean for people looking to get into the industry now and into the future?
So That question I mainly think about when I was back in practice, when I was back in a CA environment, chartered accountant, not too long ago, 18 months ago, and it's changing so fast. And I think the biggest challenge for accountants now and people coming in is the ability to be flexible and keep up with the speed of change. If you talk to a couple of generations before me and you think about accounting standards, it was just one book. The accounting standards largely were unchanged for 20, 30 years, maybe a few changes, but hardly anything. But that was 10, 15 years ago. But since then, there's constant change. And that little book of accounting standards is now 2 volumes of about that big. And it just gets bigger and bigger. So it's the change. For accountants, it's what hopefully it's coming through that you hear a lot of, it's digital disruption. This is the digital world taking over a lot of people's jobs. And personally, and it'll probably change again next year or the next 2 years, but personally I think the demand for your traditional accountant is disappearing, and I think it's going to keep disappearing. So the accountant that did the debits and credits and the posting of transactions, that's disappearing.
What key lessons have you learnt during your career, and do you have any regrets?
No, I don't think I have, and it's one that it's not a good thing to look back, but 2 is that every challenge that's come up, I've put my hand up and had the best crack at it and given it a go, and that was the biggest lesson. I think the biggest thing for all accountants, and I'm sure it still comes through the lectures, I hope it does anyway, especially in audit, is reputation. And reputation is everything, and if you lose that, you're at real risk of never giving it back.
Who do you look up to, both professionally and personally, and why?
I think personally it's all linked back, and it goes back to my grandfather, and I think a lot about my grandfather, and he was a man that always stood tall, but he was always a man of high values and respected, but also quite quiet and quite mild, and didn't need to take over a room, but you just knew by his reputation, the way he acted, that he was a man that you listened to, and he might not talk for very long, but when he talked, it was worth listening to.
You've touched on this a bit, but is there any other advice you'd like to share with current Otago students?
I was thinking about this as I was walking down here, and I was thinking, what would I say to myself? And I was thinking I probably wouldn't even listen, because when you're this age, you think you know everything, that's fine. The advice would be, and I was also thinking about what I told my boys, and what I told my boys is all about giving yourself choices, and giving yourself choices in life, and especially going through school and going through university, is giving yourself that base, so at least giving yourself a decent set of marks, of qualifications, so then when you go out to the real world, you've got those choices. You can choose to go to the top accounting firm if you want to. If you want to, you could choose to go to a mid-tier firm, because that's going to give you more experience across a wider range of clients. But at least if you've got those marks, it doesn't necessarily need to be A+, that's what I'll be telling my boys, and I was an A+ student. It doesn't have to be A+, but if you've got those Bs in there, a mixture of Cs, then you're fine, you've got yourself choices. So I think that's the key. And then after that, it's taking up the challenges that are available. And if something new comes in, change. In my career, I've always jumped on change, and that's got to me where I am now.
And finally, when you're not a director of the External Reporting Board, what things do you enjoy doing during your free time?
Yeah, and I've probably referred to them a few times just before, but my life now, where I am at, is all about my boys and my wife and spending time with family. I'm still at a stage where I'll come home tonight, the garage door open, and I'll run to the door. And that's pretty damn cool. That won't last forever. They'll be teenagers soon, where they'll think they know better than me, and they'll stop talking to me. So I'm just enjoying that while it lasts, and maybe we'll go for longer than teenagers, but we'll see what happens. At the moment they're 10 and 11, and they're very cool, and I'd like to say I did a lot of sport. I was doing cricket and rugby and running. I'd like to do more of that, but really I'm living through my kids. I'm coaching their sport, and that's very cool too.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, Anthony. It was very nice to meet you.
Yep,
Thank you very much for your answers to the questions.
Yes, it's been enjoyable.
Cheers.